with the 20th chapter, which is the conversation between Maitreya and Vidur. This chapter will primarily talk about Visarga, or the secondary creation by Lord Brahma. And for the sake of continuity, Maitreya will briefly talk about Sarga, or primary creation, because Visarga is a succession of that. And then he will proceed to talk about the creation of the various types of living entities from Brahma. So this topic has been covered 2 times in the 3rd canto. It was first spoken in the 10th chapter and again in the 12th chapter. And each time there's a little bit more details. In the 10th chapter, it's just actually 2 verses, 28 and 29. 12th chapter, a little bit more. Here, a little bit more details are given. Essentially, this chapter will then provide a segue into the lineage of Swayambhavu Manu. And one of the reasons it's doing that is because we will be speaking about Sukadeva Goswami and Sutta Goswami will be speaking about Lord Kapila. So from Swayambhavu Manu to his daughter Devahuti to her son Kapil, and the conversation between them, and then the philosophy of Sankhya. So that will take us through the most of the 3rd canto. And there again, the process of creation will be described in further details. This this chapter 20th begins with questions by Shaunak Rishis, and Shaunak Rishi will now resume the description of the conversation between Vidur and Maitreya, and then Maitreya will give a summary of Sarga, and the bulk of the chapter, about 38 verses, is Visarga, or Brahma's creation. In the document sent to you by Prem Kishore Prabhu, I have a table that summarizes Visarga. Essentially, it's description of who came into existence from where, from which body part of Brahma, from which characteristic of Brahma, what kind of beings were created. So that table is a summation of that. So we'll start with the first verse. Shaunak uvacha mahim pratheshtam adhyasya saute swambhavu manuhu kanyavatishthadvarani margaya varjanmanam. Sri Shaunak inquired, O Sutta Goswami, after the earth was again situated in its orbit, what did Swayambhu Manu do to show the path of liberation to persons who were to take birth later on? So in 8 verses, we will see the questions by Shaunak Rishi. Also important to note here of the time shift. And Puranas are famous for it, that their focus is more on the past time. So we see that there is a shift of almost 1.8 billion years, that the incarnation of Lord Vara that killed Hirnaksh came during the Chakshusha Manvantara, which is the 6th Manvantara. And Shaunak Rishi is now asking what happened during Sambhu Manvantara. So first Manvantara. So he has basically moved back from the 6th Manvantara to the first Manvantara, period of about 1.8 billion years. The Prabhupada writes that the appearance of the Lord as the boar incarnation occurred during the time of Swambhu Manu. And then he gives the duration of a Manvantara, that each Manu's period has 72 Divya Yogas, which is 4.32 million years. So a reign of the Manu is 4.32 times 72. In each Manu's period, there are many changes in many ways. And there are 14 Manus within one day of Brahma. Now, the important thing to understand is that the Manu creates the scriptural regulations for the salvations of the conditioned soul. So that's why Shaunak Rishi is asking from Sutta Goswami that what did Swambhu Manu do after the reinstatement of earth in the orbital situation? Now, during the Vara pastime of Swambhu Manu, there was no battle with Hirnaksha. So the reinstatement of the earth is a common activity in both the pastimes. But now specifically, the conversation is during the first Manvantara. Second verse. Shata Maha Bhagavataha Krishna Yekantikaha Suhur Yattatya Jayagrajam Krishne Saptayam Agavaniti. Shaunaka Rishi inquired about Vidur, who was a great devotee and friend of Lord Krishna, and who gave up the company of his elder brother because the latter, along with his sons, played tricks against the desires of the Lord. So these verses are a little interesting because they don't have an explicit. It's difficult to assign a speaker to this verse. So here it is saying Shaunak inquired about Vidur. So clearly the verse is not spoken by Shaunak, not spoken by Sutta Goswami. Now, whether it was spoken by Sukadev to Maitreya is, at least to me, is not clear. But the understanding is that since Vyasadeva is considered to be the compiler of the Bhagavatam, one can attribute these verses to him. So this is like providing a background commentary. So Shaunak inquired about Vidur. So Shaunak is not speaking, Maitreya is not speaking, Vidur is not speaking, Parikshit is not speaking, Sukadev is not speaking. So sometimes people, they try to minimize the role of Vyasadeva. So in Bhagavad Gita, I remember I was once speaking about it, and I said that Vyasadeva had this difficult job of putting so much information, and then somebody was challenging me that, what did Vyasadeva do? It was just a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna that he basically heard through Sanjay or heard directly and wrote down. But if he was just writing down conversation, then he would not be considered to be an incarnation of Lord Krishna. Prabhupada writes about it. So important for us to understand the presence of Srila Vyasadeva in Bhagavatam and in all the scriptures, in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. He's there in the background, playing a very, very important role of presenting everything to us in a way that that we can internalize it. So this particular verse, it glorifies Vidur as Ekantika, which means that he's an unalloyed devotee of Suhurt. So Suhurt refers to Krishna. So he's an unalloyed devotee of Krishna. And after establishing him, his primary quality is being glorified, which is Asatasang Tyagat, that he gave up the company of his elder brother. So he was very very affectionate to Dhritarashtra. We see in Mahabharata that there's a lot of affection, brotherly affection between the two. Vidur actually considered Dhritarashtra to be like his father. But because of all this, he gave up the company. Asat Sang Tyagat. That's the quality of Ekantika Suhurt, giving up the association of non-devotees. So this is mentioned by Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Instruction. Jiva Goswami adds to this that that the sages they consider considering the greatness of Vidur, they in the mood of humility, they will ask questions, or they are asking questions following Vidur. So basically they're saying, what did Vidur ask? They're not presenting their own questions, but they're following in the footsteps of a great devotee. So that's the reason Vidur is being glorified, that his questions are worthy of being considered as Krishna Katha. Of course, Maitreya's answers also. So Prabhupada talks about this quality of Asat Sang Tyagat in his purport, that Vidur showed by his own example that anywhere that Krishna is not present, it is unfit for human habitation. Devotee may be tolerant regarding his own interest, but he should not be tolerant when there is a misbehavior towards the Lord or the Lord's devotee. So the word that is used over here is Agavan. Prabhupada says the word Agavan is very significant. So Agavan translates to offender, because it indicates that the Kauravas, the Dhritarashtra's sons, were disobeying the instructions of Krishna. They were offending Krishna against the, so it's in the purport in the translation written, against the desires of the Lord. So working against the desires of the Lord and his representative is the quality of an Agavan, an offender. And Prabhupada says that is why they lost the war. So there can be no auspiciousness to such persons. Okay. Verse 3. Dvaipayana danvara mahitvetasya dehaja sarvatmana shrita krishnam tatparamschapyanuvrataha. Vidur was born from the body of Vedvyas and was not less than he. Thus he accepted the lotus feet of Krishna wholeheartedly and was attached to his devotees. So even this verse does not have Shaunakovacha, but now we can understand that this is the verse spoken by Shaunak Rishi to Sutta Goswami, who is glorifying Vidur. So Vidur's history is well known, that his mother was a Shudrani and born by Srila Vyasadeva. And then Prabhupada says that since he was born of a great father who was supposed to be an incarnation of Narayan and who compiled all the Vedic literatures, Vidur is also a great personality. He accepted Krishna as worshipable Lord and followed his instructions wholeheartedly. Kim anva pracham maitriyam virijasti tasevaya upkamya kushavrata ashinam tattvavittamam. Vidur was purified of all passion by wandering in sacred places, and at last he reached Haridwar, where he met the great sage who knew the science of spiritual life. And he inquired from him. Shaunak Rishi therefore asked, what more did Vidur inquire from Maitreya? So this is another one of those verses that where we see that it's not attributable to any present speaker, because it includes in it now a reference to the Shaunak Rishi asked. Prabhupada has a pretty long purport on this verse, essentially talking about the conduct of a devotee, using Vidur as an example. So I have summarized it, and the first thing Prabhupada says that from Vidur's conduct we can understand that one should not aspire to just stay home and enjoy right till the end of one's life. That when the right time has come, one should retire from active life and accept the Vanaprastha order, which is what Vidur did. Then what to do once you accept the Vanaprastha order? Virijas Tirtha Sevaya. That one should travel, Virijas, one should travel from one place to another, Tirtha Sevaya, serving different places of pilgrimage. So Tirtha Sevaya is very interesting because generally when we go to Tirthas, we go there to try and get something. Either we get purification or peace of mind or piety, something we want to get. So we say that too many sins I'm accumulating. I need to go to Tirtha, or my mind is too disturbed. I need to go to Tirtha. But here the word is used, Virajas Tirtha Sevaya. That one should go to the place of pilgrimage in the mood of service. So what is that service? Now Prabhupada explains that when one goes to the Tirtha, not only to take a bath over there, but Tattvavit Tamam. So Tattvavit Tamam, Tattvavit is the seers of the truth. And Tattvavit Tamam is to search out the seers of the truth. So that is how one serves. Other forms of service is by serving the Tirthavasis, those who reside in the Tirth, by serving the deities over there, by giving manual service there. Sometimes people, they dig wells. There are so many kundas that we see. These are people who are trying to do service to the Tirth. Topmost is Tattva-Vituttamam, that seek out the self-realized souls living there and take instructions from them. Now, in the present day and age, that may be difficult. So Prabhupada says that Narottam Das Thakur recommends that better than Tirtha Sevya is meditation on Govinda, wherever you're situated. Why? Because the Tirth spaces have become commercialized. Difficult to get a Tattvavit there. As soon as you go to a Tirtha place, because people come as tourists, then the reciprocating mentality over there is to treat them like tourists. And then tourists all over the world are fleeced. Anywhere you go as a tourist, you will be charged 5 times more for any article that you buy. You will be tricked out of your money or into buying useless stuff. So that's the nature of the interaction. Tourists are always fleeced. So you go to a Tirtha as a tourist, you go to Vrindavan as a tourist, the Vrajvasis will fleece you. So Narottam Das Thakur says, don't worry about going to these Tirthas, etc. Best is to meditate on Govinda. And this is actually, so Prabhupada says Narottam Das Thakur recommends. And this is actually a bhajan written by Narottam Das Thakur called Anya Bilasha Chhadi in Prem Bhakti Chandrika, where Narottam Das Thakur says that the struggle to travel to various pilgrimage places is simply the mind's mistake. Because to make spiritual advancement, all one actually needs is the lotus feet of Lord Govinda. And then Prabhupada concludes that still, ordinary persons may derive benefit from traveling to holy places like Prayag, Mathura, Vrindavan, and Haridwar. That's why there are temples over there. That's why still recommended. We see so many yatras being conducted on different tirthas. So there is still benefit. If it is done under proper guidance, one goes with proper mentality, then that's the reason the Lord leaves behind these tirthas, that conditioned souls can visit them, think about Him, and make spiritual progress. Yeah, verse 5. Tayo samvadata sutta pravrata hayamalakataha apogangivagni hare padam bhujashrayaha. Shaunak inquired about the conversation between Vidur and Maitreya. There must have been many narrations of the spotless pastimes of the Lord. The hearing of such narration is exactly like bathing in the water of the Ganges, for it can free one from all sinful reactions. So we see this constant encouragement from the sages to Sutta Goswami. So this is essentially a glorification of Krishna Katha. And Krishna Katha, right from the first canto, first chapter, is glorified over and over again. One is because it is exhilarating, so it is natural to glorify it. And it is also encouragement. We'll see later that the sages once again glorify Sutta Goswami as the speaker. So this vibrant interaction between the speaker and the audience, Prabhupada writes, um, is important. It encourages the speaker and also establishes the mood of the audience. So in this verse, Krishna Katha has been compared to the water of the Ganges. And then Prabhupada writes that the Ganges comes from the lotus feet of Krishna, and Krishna Katha is, he says, Bhagavad Gita is as good because it is spoken from the mouth of the Supreme Lord. And because the Lord is absolute, there is no difference between the Ganges coming from his lotus feet or the words coming from his mouth. The potency of them is the same. The water of the Ganges, the narration of his pastimes, and the words spoken to him are all on the same platform. And thus taking shelter of any one of them is equally good. Srila Rupa Goswami has enunciated that anything in relationship with Krishna is on the transcendental platform. Rupa writes this on the purport. So this is, of course, a reference to Yukt Vairagya, to that anything in relationship with Krishna is on the transcendental platform. So in a lecture in London, this is on Bhagavad Gita's chapter 1st, verse 4 and 5, Srila Prabhupada says that, but the thing is that Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe, whenever there is connection with Krishna, that also becomes Krishna. This is the philosophical form of, this is the subtle form of philosophical understanding. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe, if there is relationship to Krishna. So Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe, this is Prabhupada quoting from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Anasakti Abhishaya Yathartham Upajanta Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagya Muchyate. And Yukt Vairagya is one of the cornerstones of the philosophies of the six Goswamis and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and of ISKCON, of using anything and everything in the service of Krishna, with the understanding that if there is anything in the connection, in connection with Krishna, it becomes glorified. Verse 6. Tana kirtya bhadram te kirtanayodara karmanaha rasagya ko nutrapeta hari lila mritam piban. Also the Goswami, all good fortune to you. Please narrate the activities of the Lord, which are all magnanimous and worth glorifying. What sort of devotee can be satiated by hearing the nectarian pastimes of the Lord? So the sages, they're giving profuse blessings to Sutta. And again, we see this as a trend, that every now and then they will, right from the first canto, first chapter, right till the end of the Bhagavatam, you will see the sages repeatedly glorifying Sutta Goswami, blessing him, all glories to you, all good fortune to you. And this is the way of encouraging them. This is the way of acknowledging his mercy, that he's giving them the opportunity to participate in Krishna Katha. They had already glorified Krishna Katha in the previous verse. And Prabhupada says that the pastimes of the Lord are always enacted on the transcendental platform and should be received with all respect by devotees. And because they are on the transcendental platform, there is no satiation. So Prabhupada gives the example of Bhagavad Gita. And this is an example that we have all empirically observed ourselves. That we have read the Bhagavad Gita so many times. And every time we read it, there is some new realization. There's some new understanding. Oh, Krishna does this, Krishna does that. So right now I'm in the process of doing a chapter by chapter summation of Bhagavad Gita over 18 weeks. So I'm again more deeply reading each of the chapter. And then it struck me so strongly that this chapter I read so many times, and now I'm reading it again, and then there is some aspect to it that comes from, and that's the ever freshness, the ever newness of scriptural literature. From material perspective, you once read a book and very difficult to pick it up, at least for me, very difficult to pick it up and read it again. You pick a book, you're done with it, you put it aside. There's no need for you to go back to it. But the difference is that in the transcendental context, you're not just reading a book, you're having a conversation. So two conversations will never be the same. Even if two people are talking, the topic is the same. And they come back and talk again, same two people, same two topic, different conversation. And they may have it over and over again, but the conversation will always be a little different. So that's how one relates, because one can understand that the spiritual literature, it's not material, it's not dormant and passive. This is the Lord or his devotee speaking to you. Okay, I'll do a couple of more verses and then we'll stop for any comments. Evamughrishvaha prastha rishibhirnaimashyanah bhagvate apridhadyatmas tanaha shruyatamiti. On being asked to speak by the great sages of Naimisharanya, the son of Romaharshan, Sutta Goswami, whose mind was absorbed in the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, said, "Please hear what I shall speak, what I shall now speak." The mood of the speaker of Krishna Katha is given in this word, Bhagavati Arpita Adhyatma, that his mind was fully dedicated to the Lord. Internally, Sutta Goswami was absorbed in the pastimes of the Lord. Externally, he is speaking as a service to the sages and to us, to posterity. So, questioned by them, he says, "Shriyatamiti, please listen as I speak." Okay, now Sutta starts speaking. Sutta vacha hareerdita krodha tanosva mayaya nishamya go udharanam rasatala leelam hiranaksham avagyahatam sanjataharsho Munimahabharata. Sutta Goswami continued. Vidur, the descendant of Bharat, was delighted to hear the story of the Lord, who, having assumed by his own divine potency the form of a boar, had enacted the sport of lifting the earth from the bottom of the ocean and indifferently killing the demon Hirnaksh. Vidur then spoke to the sage as follows. Sutta Goswami is resuming the narration from the point where it was previously left off. So this verse very nicely, concisely summarizes the Hirnaksh Vad Katha. That he assumed by his own divine potency the form of a Lord. He enacted the sport of lifting the earth from the bottom of the ocean, and he indifferently killed the demon Hirnaksh. So, so Sutta replies to the sages with an answer that also responds to their praising of Vidur. So they had praised Vidur as being an Ananya Bhakta. And Sutta, he starts off by continuing the glorification of Vidur. Vidur inquired, after hearing about the deliverance of the Lord and the death of Hirnaksh because of his offense. The word dhrita used in this verse means accepted. And it just points to the fact that the Lord accepted the form of a boar out of his own free will. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada strongly condemns people who think otherwise. People who think that the Lord became a boar, or the boars that we see around us are in any way related to the Lord, or the fishes are related to Matsya, or the tortoises are related to Kurma. So no, the Lord just accepted the form out of his free will. Also, Prabhupada negates the Mayavad version that when the Brahman assumes a form, the form is that of Maya. Because the Mayavadi version is that because the Brahman is formless, then anytime there is a form, the form has to be a product of Maya. So this negates that also. That when Lord accepted the form of a boar, then he did not come under the control of Maya or under the force of Maya. He assumed that form. He was transcendental in his form as Krishna. He is transcendental in his form as boar. He continues to be transcendental after he ended up the pastime of Varadev. Prabhupada writes in the purport, the Mayavad idea that the living entity is the supreme absolute truth, but has become covered by Maya is invalid, because Maya cannot be so great that it can cover the supreme. The covering capacity can be employed on the part and parcel of Brahman, which is the jivas, not on the supreme Brahman. And even on the jivas, the only time the covering capacity can be employed is when the jiva agree to it. So even there, Maya is considered to be the inferior energy. Jiva is still the superior energy. But when the jiva agrees, and then Maya obliges and covers the jiva. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, commenting on this verse, says that the verse dhrita, which means accepted, also means eternally situated. So this implies that the form of Lord Vara is an eternally existing form that manifests for the performance of this Leela. And then later on, I think in the 5th canto, we see praise to Lord Vara by the residents of Bhudev. So because Bhumi Devi is considered to be his consort, so he's praised by the residents of Bhuloka. Okay, let me pause here and see if we have any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, I kind of still kind of confused about the appearance of Varaha, the Swayambhava Manu and the Sakshasha Manu. You referred to two different, right? Isn't it? And Sakshasha Manu, in that period, he killed Hiranyaksha. But in the Swayambhava Manu period, he did not. He just brought the earth from the ocean, bottom of the ocean to up. So at that time, Hiranyaksha was there or no?
There was no Hiranyaksha.
Oh, okay. So how did the earth go to the bottom of this ocean? Was it by any other?
Yeah, because at the Swayambhava Manu is right at the beginning of Brahma's day, and we understand that the day begins after the night of Brahma when devastation, partial devastation happens. So because of the devastation, the earth was still remains submerged within the Garbhoda ocean.
Thank you, Prabhu. Now it's very clear. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just a comment about you when you say that each time you read, then new realization come for any book, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. How do you explain that? Even like Gandhi said, no? Whenever he had a problem, he just opened the book and he read a verse and he gets the solution or inspiration. I think, can you comment a bit more on that? Even as you said, you have read it so many times, and I know that you even have you remember you had a daily Bhagavad Gita page that you wrote, and it was fantastic. But still, you are still discovering new things.
It's mystical, difficult to rationalize it. It's more experiential. Rampal Maharaj says at this point that so the thing that I talked about conversation, I was actually paraphrasing something that he had spoken, that it's not that you're reading up like a passive piece of literature. Prabhupada says that in the Bhagavatam, he says Krishna is there in each and every page, each and every verse of the Bhagavatam. So when you're reading Bhagavatam, you're talking to Krishna. Same thing in Bhagavad Gita. So when there's a conversation that's happening, you and I can talk about the same topic today and tomorrow, and the conversation will be a little different. Because based on what you say, I may get some different realization. Based on what I say, you might have a different realization. And that's what we experience, that we read it, and we read Srila Prabhupada's purports, and Srila Prabhupada's purports also have the same effect, that you read them and then you say, okay, I think I got it. And then you read it sometime later on, and then you say, oh, Prabhupada meant this also. Prabhupada actually was talking about that. Now I get it. And then you read it later on and then say, oh, okay, there's another thing that Prabhupada was talking about. So I think it's just the mystical nature of this of spiritual literature, coming, especially when it is coming from a pure source.
It's like the Da Vinci, code box.
Yeah.
Prajit, do you have those writings anywhere? What Prabhu was referring to? The page by page or daily thing, I don't know, on Bhagavad Gita?
No, actually, when my computer died, all of them went away with that. I had them stored on the computer, and that computer died.
Oh, Prabhu, this is a great loss.
So yeah, I was.
Prabhu,
Well,
maybe you can still get it. You remember it was being sent on the email of Washington DC every day. Maybe
I was thinking about it, that I can ask somebody, but I don't know if somebody had saved 700 emails, because I used to.
there was a Mataji that was assigned to do that. I forgot her name, but maybe because you should have given her the document so that she can.
Oh, I didn't know.
This is something that you have to try to find. It would be a great loss.
Okay, if you remember the name of the Mataji, if you can send it to me, I'll try and follow up with her.
Yeah, I don't. I will try to see. I think it's about maybe what 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, about that time. Yeah, I did it. It went through 2 cycles. I mean, it went from 1 to 700, and then after that went back. So it happened over 4 years. But then after that the laptop was lost. Well, it didn't get lost. It got hosed. So
Yeah, that would be awesome if you can get it back, Prabhu.
I'll try. I will try and find the person somebody who did that, or maybe it's it's Guru Maharaj and Krishna's guidance that I should do it again.
Do you still have the old laptop, or is it
No, it's gone. It's gone.
Because now with new technology, maybe we can recover it.
I know. No, that's gone. My wife is very particular about throwing away old stuff. She doesn't let me keep things. So as soon as something is not useful, it's the next day it disappears.
Welcome.
Oh, Krishna.
That's why I'm trying to stay useful.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Let me continue with the 9th verse. Vidurvacha Prajapati Patihi Shreshva Prajasarge Prajapati Kimarabhatami Brahman Prabhuya Vaktamargavet. Vidur said, since you know of matters inconceivable to us, tell me, O holy sage, what did Brahma do to create living beings after evolving the Prajapatis, the progenitors of living beings? So we'll see in 3 verses from 9 to 11, Vidur asking about Brahma's creation. So the original conversation between Maitreya and Vidur was about the process of creation. And in answering this, Maitreya had described the creation of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, not the creation, the manifestation of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and then the birth of Brahma. He had described the creation of the 4 Kumars, the Rudras, then the 10 sons born from directly from Brahma, and then the creation of Swayambhavu Manu. In the 13th chapter, 3rd canto, after Manu has been created, he is asked by Brahma. Brahma blesses him, saying that you're a good son because you're following my orders. So now go forth and expand the population of the universe. And then Manu had pointed out at the time that the earth had been submerged since the previous annihilation. So when Manu had pointed out that, then there is a description of the rescue of earth by Lord Vara. When that description was happening, within that description also came the battle between Varadev and Hiranyaksh. Even though it was not in that particular time period, but because it is Krishna Katha, because it is Lord Vara, the description came. So, so this takes us from the 13th chapter to the 19th chapter. Now, in the 20th chapter, Vidur has resumed his original line of questioning. Because if you were to just look at it, after the recitation of the pastime of Lord Vara, Vidur is now asking that how did the Prajapatis create? But actually, it's a flowing conversation. The conversation went into one of the details, which is the rescue of Earth by Varadev, went into a further detail of the battle with Hiranyaksh. Now Vidur is resuming, saying that how did the process of creation unfold? Prabhupada writes that the word avyakta margavit is significant, which means that one who knows that which is beyond our perception. So how can one know beyond one's perception? It's very interesting that Prabhupada says that it's not that you need mystic powers to know that's beyond your perception. All you need to do is to learn from a superior authority in the parampara. And Prabhupada gives the example, and this is one that he uses often, that for a child to know who his father is beyond the perception. Why? Because that whole process happened before the child was created. So the child can never perceive the creation, his own creation, his or her. So he can never know who his father is. But then he can easily find out by inquiring from his mother. Mother is the authority. So similarly, for us, it is very difficult to find things that predate us. The creation of the universe, the presence of superior beings in heavenly planets. But then avyakta marga, simply by inquiring from one who has also inquired from one. Essentially the principle of parampara. So the first authority is Brahma, and then Narad. And Maitreya belongs to the same parampara. So he is also avyakta marga with, and Prabhupada says that going forward, anybody who is in a bona fide line of disciplic succession is avyakta marga with. A personality who knows that which is beyond perception. Not because he has any siddhis, but simply because he has surrendered to the process. Verse 10. Ye maricha dayo vipra yastu swam bhuvo manuhu te vai brahmana adeshat katham etadabhavayan. Vidur inquired, how did the Prajapatis, such progenitors of living entities as Marichi and Swayambhavu Manu, create according to the instruction of Brahma? And how did they evolve this manifested universe? So this is secondary creation, Visarga. Verse 11. Swaditya kim asrajan swatantra utakarmasu aho swit samataha sarva idam sma kalpayan. Did they evolve the creation in conjunction with their respective wives? Did they remain independent in their action, or did they jointly produce it? So this may seem to be like a strange question. So Vidur is asking that did they create themselves, or in conjunction with the wives? But the reason they're asking is because there is already evidence of Brahma creating without the help of anybody else. So when Brahma had created the Prajapatis like Daksha, so he had created independently. And then there are Prajapatis like Daksha and Kashyap creating through their minds. So why is this question being asked? It's because before this, everything is coming from Brahma's mind. He's creating everything himself. Now there will be a change. Brahma is done with his round of creation. So essentially, this is a question about the lineages. Father to son, father to son. And we'll see that Maitreya does not really answer this question directly, but he gives a review of it, because lineages will be covered in a later canto in further details. Verse 12. Maitreya vacha Devena dhrutirkenya parena animashena cha jad kshabad bhagvato mahanasid gunatraya. Maitreya said, when the equilibrium of the combination of the three modes of nature was agitated by the unseen activity of the living entity, by Mahavishnu, and by the force of time, the total material elements were produced. So in 4 verses 12 to 15, Maitreya actually does not answer Vidur's question directly, but he will speak about Sarga for the sake of continuity. Vidur is asking specifically about Visarga, more specifically about subsequent stage in Visarga. Visarga is Brahma's creation and creation by those created by Brahma. But he speaks about Sarga just to establish context. So in answer to the question, Maitreya had previously described the process of Sarga. And and here he mentions that when the equilibrium of the combination of the three modes of nature was agitated by the unseen activity of the living entity, by Mahavishnu and by the force of time, the total material elements were created. So he's giving 5 causes of creation over here. And it is interesting to note that these 5 causes of creation are the same as the 5 topics of the Bhagavad Gita. So the first is Deva, or the destiny of the conditioned soul, or the karmas of the soul. The material creation, it exists for the conditioned soul who want to enjoy separately from the Lord. And even though the material world comes in and goes out of existence, the time factor pertaining to when the jiva is conditioned is durvit arcana. He says cannot be ascertained. And then there is the Lord's desire. So we see the 5 factors coming over here. The verse talks about the jiva. Then the verse says daivena. So daivena is the desire to enjoy separate from Krishna. So this translates to the karmas of the jiva, the activities that the jivas perform when the desire to enjoy separate from Krishna. So these are the binding activities. Those activities performed in conjunction to the will of Krishna are liberating activities. Then the third is animation. So animation is the factor of time. Then parena. Parena is the desire of Lord Vishnu to create. So this desire of the Lord is compassion. So out of compassion, he wakes up the jivas so that they can make advancements. And then for the same reason he disturbs the 5th factor, which is prakriti, and then impregnates the jiva within her. So these 5 factors come together to produce the Mahatattva. Prakriti is disturbed by the injunction of the jivas carrying their karmas with them, by the desire of the Lord, and under the influence of time. So from this pradhan, it says by the glance of the Lord, Bhagavata, what comes is the Mahatattva. So in the 3rd canto, 5th chapter, verse 28, Mahatattva is described as the connection between soul and matter, which means that in each one of us there is a portion of the Mahatattva. And after Mahatattva, what comes is described in the next verse. Verse 13. Raja pradhanan mahatas trilingo devyachodita jata sasaja bhutadi vyodadini panchashaha. As impelled by the destiny of the jiva, the false ego, which is of 3 kinds, evolved from the Mahatattva, in which the element of Rajas predominates. From the ego, in turn, evolved many groups of 5 principles. So this is again an ongoing summary of what was already discussed in 3rd canto, 5th chapter, where we had talked about Sarga. that the Mahatattva is initially predominated by Satoguna. And at the time of producing Ahankar, it is predominated by Rajoguna. And Mahatattva predominated by Rajo is known as Sutra Tattva. And then Ahankar is further acted upon by the three gunas. And in the mode of goodness, we get Gyan. In the mode of passion, we get Kriya. In the mode of ignorance, we get Dravya. And then here it says, from the ego in turn evolved many groups of 5 principles. So not sure if there is anything particular about the number 5, but many of the things that evolve in the Visarga are grouped in 5. For instance, there are the 5 Gyanendriyas, the eye, ear, nose, skin, and tongue. Then there are 5 presiding deities, the Dig Devta, Vayu, Varun, Ashwani, Surya. There are 5 Tanmatras, the sense perception, form, sound, smell, touch, and taste. Then there is the Pancha Mahabhutas, earth, water, fire, air, ether. And there is the 5 Karmendriyas, hand, legs, mouth, anus, and genitals. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that the primordial matter of Prakriti, material nature consisting of the 3 modes, generates 4 groups of 5. So I've actually described 5 groups of 5, and Srila Prabhupada describes the 4th, the 5th one that is actually a part of the first one, which is the Gyanendriya and the presiding deities of them. So, like the Dig Devta are the presiding deities of the ear. The Vayu is the presiding deity of the skin. So Prabhupada in the end says that some say there are 5 groups of 5, if you consider these 2 separately. But the 5th group, then he says, is the 5 deities who control these divisions. Verse 14. Tani chai kashaha srashtum asamarthani bhautikam samhatya deva yogena Haimam andamavasrajan. Separately unable to produce the material universe, they combined with the help of the energy of the Supreme Lord and were able to produce a shining egg. So this is the Brahman. As part of the Sarga, the Brahman is created. So each and every universe, the creation begins with the creation of the Brahman. Verse 15. So asyastha vishalile andakosh niratmakaha sargam vaivarsha sahasram anvava sititam ishvara. For over 1,000 years, the shiny egg lay in the waters of the causal ocean, in the lifeless state. Then the Lord entered it as Garbhodakshay Vishnu. So now this is a summation of 3rd canto, 6th chapter. And from this, it appears that all the universes are floating on the waters of the causal ocean. So, so this is an important picture to keep in mind, because later on when we will discuss creation and when Lord Kapila will explain creation and we'll discuss it, then we will have to keep that relationship between, because the causal ocean is spiritual, the universes are material. So that's the relationship, that these material universes are floating on the spiritual water of the causal ocean. Not just our universe, but the innumerable universes that together create this material world. They are floating on the causal ocean. On the causal ocean is also lying Mahavishnu. And at the other end of causal ocean is the spiritual world. So the causal ocean plays an important role in terms of anchoring the relativistic position of the material creation, Mahavishnu, universal, Mahavishnu and the spiritual world. So then the Lord enters this Brahman as Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And since the Lord, it says that when Garbhodaksha entered, the living entities also entered into the Brahman. So for 1,000 years, Sagram, nothing, Varsha Sahasram, nothing much happened. The universe was lying dormant until the Lord enters into it. Tasya nabherabhut padmam saharsarko rudiditi sarvajina kaya yukto yatra swayam abhut swarat. From the navel of the personality of Godhead, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, sprouted a lotus flower, effulgent like 1,000 blazing suns. This lotus flower is the reservoir of all conditioned souls. And the first living entity who came out of the lotus flower was the omnipotent Brahma. So now that Brahma has come, the creation moves from Sarga to Visarga. So this is essentially a review of 3.8 chapter. During the Padma Kalpa, the Lord entered what was created in the Brahma Kalpa, and a lotus arose from the abdomen of the Lord. So because Garbhodaksha entered along with the jivas, then when this lotus appeared, the jivas left the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu and entered into the lotus. So it is from here that these jivas then appear with gross forms in the material universe. We all went through this, we don't remember it, of course, but we were carried in by the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu and held within the lotus, depending on our cycle of karma, for varying period of times. And then when the time was right, then we manifested in the universe with gross bodies. So Prabhupada says that it appears that the conditioned souls who rested within the body of the personality of Godhead after the dissolution of the last creation came out in the sum total form of the lotus. This is called Hiranyagarbha. And the first living entity to come out was Brahma, who has this duty of creating the manifest universe. So Prabhupada interestingly says that that the lotus is described as 1,000 blazing suns. So why is it so effulgent? And he says it is effulgence. It is effulgent because of the presence of the jivas within it. Because the jivas, they have the same quality of the Lord. The Lord is effulgent. The souls are effulgent. And the Lord's effulgence appears as the Brahma Jyoti. So in the purport, Prabhupada said this is called Hiranya Garbha. And Hiranya Garbha is one of those words like Atma that has so many meanings. And it refers here to the lotus flower. Then it refers to the Virat Purush. It refers to Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Surya Dev is also called Hiranya Garbha. Later on in the 22nd chapter in this canto, Lord Kapila says that the worshippers of Hiranyagarbha, expansion of the personality of Godhead. So here he is referring to Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So he is saying those worshippers remain within this material world until the end of 2 Praradas, when Lord Brahma also dies. So the Hiranyagarbha here refers to Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Other places it will refer to Brahma. Other places it will refer to Virat Purush. So context, important to see the context in which it is being described. Okay, I'll do one more verse and then we'll pause after that. Sonovisto Bhagavata Yahashete Salilashaye Loka Samstam Yatha Purvam Nirmame Samsthaya Swaya. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's lying on the Garbhodak ocean, entered the heart of Brahma, Brahma brought his intelligence to bear. And with the intelligence invoked, he began to create the universe as it was before. So, creation by Lord Brahma is the process of Visarga, which was previously discussed in the 3rd canto, 12th chapter. And Prabhupada mentions the importance of the statement that when the Lord entered the heart of Brahma. So when he was empowered by the Lord to act in charge of the mode of passion. So Prabhupada uses the word in charge of the mode of passion. Many times more because every time it's cumbersome to saying that Brahma is in charge of mode of passion, Shiva is in charge of mode of ignorance, Vishnu is in charge of mode of goodness. They just said, we just say Sato Rajogun, Vishnu, Brahma and Shiv. But Prabhupada here is explicitly making this point that Lord Brahma is in charge of the mode of passion, and by the mercy of the Lord, when he entered as Paramatma, and he gives him the required intelligence. So he's almost independent of the control of the Lord. That is the power of Brahma. Prabhupada gives the example that a highly posted manager is almost as independent as the owner of the Lord. Why? Because the manager has full trust of the owner. So he gives them a lot of leeway. And he's also described as independent because the Lord has selected him to be his representative to control the universe. So we had seen earlier on the glorification of Brahma by Narad in the second canto, where he said that you're the personality of Godhead. You do all these wonderful things. I can't understand what you're doing. You're beyond my comprehension. So he recites these verses that almost put Brahma at the same level as the Lord. And the reason is that he has the complete empowerment of the Lord. He has the complete trust of the Lord. And then the Lord is accompanying him as Paramatma in order to help and guide him at every step of the way. Okay, so I'll pause here and see if you have any discussion.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Just a comment. Every time we hear this Sarga Visarga, it just go over our heads. Although we heard it a couple of times, it's always like that. I don't know why. And I'm thinking that as I was studying my chemistry, how I draw all the charts and put it up on the wall, I have to do such thing in order to remember these things, I guess. And only when I get the full picture, then it will be full picture in the sense like as much as is explained. Then it will be easy to comprehend this the finer details about how the false ego interacts with the modes and how it manifests all these things. So it's really mind-boggling actually.
Yeah, you're right. I completely share your realization in that respect. You know, one way is that a lot is being conveyed in little. Um, like just to give you an example, that if you were to completely understanding the working of an automobile, then so many years of study and such copious piece of literatures before we understand uh, relatively simpler mechanical creation. Here, the whole process of universal creation is being explained in verses that, if you put them end to end, few pages at the most. So, so I think for us to aspire to understand it completely is never going to fructify. The verses are not even designed for us to understand everything. They are there to convey to us a sense of the complexity. Like somebody says that, you know, within a car there is an explosion that is happening every moment, and that explosion is driving the car. So yeah, it's a factual statement. Now you understand it, but if you start looking into the details, where's the explosion happening? Who's creating the explosion? What does the explosion actually do? Well, it fires the cylinder. What happens after that? Well, there's a camshaft. What happens? You know, then there's so much details after that. And here we are talking about something that is really um, on a grand platform. What I would like to also do, given the if I have the time, Gaur Sundar Prabhu is also helping me in there, is to summarize the processes of Sarga and Visarga and then present it end to end. So maybe I'll take one session, one of these lectures, and only keep it for Sarga Visarga. In the 26th chapter, Lord Kapila, he gives probably the most exhaustive description of Sarga. Some Visarga, but of Sarga also. So either before the 26th or after the 26th chapter, if I'm able to get the material together, we'll try and combine from the different places this process, because the process of creation is so we read about it in the second chapter, first canto. in the second chapter, 5th canto, in the second chapter, 10th canto. We read about it in the 3rd canto. And then the final time that we will read it is in the 3rd canto, 26th chapter. After that, we won't read it. So that will be our last interaction with it. So before we leave the process of Sarga, it'd be a good opportunity for us to look at it from an end-to-end perspective, to the extent that that the Bhagavatam reveals to us.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Last time you mentioned that there is some slight difference from the Chaitanya Samrita. I don't know if we can also, like the glance of Vishnu is not mentioned here. Maybe this is something that we can also integrate, or just to know a little bit more.
It's a good idea. Yes. Yeah. That would help also. Okay. So if there are no more questions, so I wanted to mention one more thing, and this is more for Achyuta, if you're still around, Achyuta.
Yes, Prabhu.
So the devotees in the Namat, in the Namat that we run, they have set up a website called bhaiharidas.com. I think it's bhaiharidas.com. And there you will find all the PowerPoints that I have set up for the chapter-wise summary of Bhagavad Gita. So if you're interested, you can download those PowerPoints. So the PowerPoints give a high level, not a 60,000 feet, but I would say probably like 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet overview of the chapters in Bhagavad Gita.
And it is bhaiharidas.com?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Prabhu, just while we were talking, I've been able to find the document. Not the whole document, but
Okay.
yeah, I've sent you the link. It's on a Google Drive.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, but you will have to contact the Mataji. Maybe somebody can copy and paste. We can work on it.
Yeah, we'll figure it. I think maybe we can compile it from different sources.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll end here. Vancha kalpatarubhayashchit kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anant Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Gaur Premanand. Hare Krishna. Thank you very
Hare
much.
Krishna Prabhuji, Dandvat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.